I'm going to have to lean forward because I haven't got anything clever to top it with. But I wanted to talk about logic, basically, and lack of it in who we are. When we start any kind of project or anything digital, there's always this thing about like, what is it? What are the kind of objectives we're trying to achieve with it? And the main thing we're trying to achieve is that most people, clients, end users just want something that works. We just want it to work for ourselves. So then, our approach then is to think about it and categorize it and go, well, what are we trying to do? What are the user journeys? All this kind of stuff. We're trying to legitimize everything, trying to put some logic to what it is that we actually are trying to deliver. So we do a lot of wireframing, a lot of sketches, a lot of like interesting techniques, and it all has its value. But straight away we're trying to put logic to it to compartmentalize it, and that's all fine. The king of logic, Mr. Spock, of course, was also half human, and that was always the kind of thing about like, oh yeah, he's a logical person, but being half human was always the bit where he showed he was a bit weaker, or he understood the illogical nature and gave into a lot of things as well. And this is actually a key part of what we are. We are not logical. We don't think logically about most things, and when approached with situations, everyone comes up with a different solution for it. And just some examples of it. Credit cards. We're more likely to sign up for a credit card if we can get a picture of ourselves or our family on it than if it's got a decent, interest rate on it. There's been studies that have proved that, and that's why they did that for a long time. Another interesting example or reference was there's a film called Singles, which showing my age here a bit. It's got a great soundtrack, by the way, if you ever want to listen to it. But in this, it was about this guy who he lived in Seattle, and his main job was to change the gridlock problem they had in Seattle, and he came up with this idea of this super train. I think you can see it actually, but he came up with this idea for this super train. It's like if his line that he always used to pitch it into everybody he spoke to was that if you give people great music and great coffee and a great experience, people will park and ride. And he was expecting that everybody would like just dump their cars and get on this train because it's so great. He'd thought it through. He had the idea. Everybody he spoke to about it in the film said, "Yeah, but I love my car." And it's that thing about no matter how logical it was, they still just love this car. So you have to understand people's emotional needs. This is the thing is that once we've done all this logical thing, you have to then go, yeah, but people have to fall in love with it in some way, and everyone knows that falling in love is illogical in its own sense. So understanding people's illogical needs, but surely we are actually still in control of what even though emotional people, we're still in control of what we're doing. Yes. So the word yes. Y-E-S. So, the word yes is spelt Y-E-S. So, what word is E-Y-E-S? Anyone?
Eyes.
It is indeed eyes. Did anyone think it was E-E-S or anything like that? Because try it on anybody. I've tried it on 3 people today, and it's always worked. You're too good. But again, it's this thing about like forming. If you set up a structure for somebody and you form like the process in their head, they've already kind of like thought, oh, I know, like in that instance, I've already set up what yes means, so adding an E to it, well, it's got to be E, yes. It's got to be, because I've already done that bit, I don't have to think about that bit. So we don't necessarily think about it, we're not in control of the way we're thinking, sometimes particularly if we're led into situations like that as well. We're lazy, we always find the easiest route to things as well. Can you see that, by the way? This is example here is actually like there's a path that runs around here. But most people walk across here because it's easier. And the most interesting thing about this, I've seen this done a few times where there's these paths that it goes there and it goes around there, but people will walk across here because it's more easy, it's convenient, no one's stopping you. So what you could do is you could actually block all this bit off, stop people from going there, force them to go around this route, or actually just turn it into a path. I've seen that done very well where they just turn it into a path, go, people want to go that way, let them go that way. So you actually, rather than the logical route that you've already worked out, this is the way it's got to go, actually embracing what people are doing as well. So finding out what people are doing and embracing what people are doing anyway, it's so easy. So you understand the practical needs as well as the logical needs as well. So we don't think in the way that was intended, and we're not logical in the way we think. Sounds really difficult to actually do anything. What is the solution? Well, there isn't one solution, to be honest, but there is a lot of different solutions. I've just thrown a few bits up here to show the sort of things you can do. Most importantly, ask questions. There is user testing. We were just having a conversation about user testing. That you can't actually come up with one single solution and go, okay, I've tested all these people and that's what they think, and that's what you've got to keep doing this. You've got to, anything that you design, you can continue to refine. You'll continue to find new things and new ways of thinking. You'll find somebody will use it in a different way. Go with it. If somebody wants to use it in a way, in a way that you hadn't designed it before, make it work that way. Always kind of try and reinvent it. Always try and actually find out what it is that people want to use it for. And test early and test often. If you're going to actually ask questions, if you're going to do any of these things, do it as soon as you can, even if there's an idea in your head. Hey, wouldn't it be good to do this? Like the idea with the super train, found out very quickly it wasn't going to be a viable solution. So you move on to something else, or you reinvent it, or you find different ways of being able to make it work. But do it early and do it often. Design for the logical and expect the illogical. Always expect. When I first discovered that I always expected to have all the answers, and what I realised is that I can't have all the answers. I can just have a place to start. It was like a weight off my shoulders, because I'm going, actually, this is where we start. If we carry on finding out how people are using these things and actually reinvent it to make it work for how people do want to use it, you'll actually get successful use them, but never stop. Never stop actually trying to find it. And that's it. I did have a last slide. There you go. Thank you. Is there any questions?
No. Just questions? I was going to say, just in terms of updating things and making things kind of flexible to fit around the user, how often do you find that it gets to a point where it's the hardware that's the problem rather than the actual way that they're trying to do something? So the limitations behind what technology can do versus what people are trying to do.
It depends on the solution. I mean, sometimes you'll have something that just doesn't work the way. I'm trying to think. There is an example there where somebody will create something and somebody starts using it for something else. I mean, things like Facebook and stuff like this. It was invented for one thing and started used for other things. It's a difficult question to answer because it depends on what it is. I mean, I'd say that anything can be improved. You just have to listen and find out how people are using it. I don't think anything's ever finished. You can always, again, technology is always being reinvented as well. So, I don't think I really answered the question.
How many of your clients have you convinced to leave a project open-ended?
Very few.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one, isn't it? Keep the wires hanging out the back. Yeah. Just don't do it, do they?
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's something I will always advocate is the constant reinvention of it. But people think in short term. I think that you always have an opportunity to improve something. And sometimes you do get that client that you have a long-term relationship with on projects. I have worked
a healthy maintenance contract.
Yeah, good maintenance contract. Yeah, it's one of those things because again, a lot of the digital projects are always quite short-term, but certain other projects there was always a longer lifespan. It's about getting them to see that vision of how it can be improved. Sorry.
Famously, Twitter's 140 character limit was a product of their sort of technological MVP they couldn't handle anymore, and it became a defining characteristic. But a lot of the time, UX design is troubled by the fact that you've got to try and expect the illogical, try and accommodate lots of people doing lots of different things. What have you got any advice for people on UX in terms of keeping it seriously simple, almost so simple that it actually curtails a lot of other use?
I generally work to like kind of three principles of it's either, if you want to make something simple, you either have to remove functionality, reduce it, or hide it. Those kind of three principles will always help simplify something, but simplification of something actually hides a lot of complexity. There's sometimes you used to do a lot of work just to get something to be really simple. Twitter's 140 characters is purely because it was a text-based service. I think everyone knows that. And they've kind of relished in that. They have talked about expanding it, but it's one of those things. I think it's become a brand thing more for than anything now. But yeah, I mean, simplifying something is there's always kind of rules and ways of being able to do it. But yeah, if you've got lots of buttons and lots of complication going on. You know, it's asking the serious questions. Is it necessary? You know, does that need to be there? Do we need to actually be doing that? Is this the bit people are using? You know, again, it's going back to asking questions and not necessarily sitting down and going use this, but actually just asking questions of anybody around. It's like, do you ever use that? Looking at the stats. You know, there's loads of ways you can do it and going, you know, just being brutal with it. You know, cut it in half, take half the functionality out. Actually makes it a lot simpler. Yeah, there's lots of ways of being able to do that. You can even then, you know, create two different. In some cases, you may actually end up creating two products out of it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, generally, 3 principles of actually remove it, make it smaller, or hide it.
Have you ever thought about asking your clients or your customers why they want to make it simpler? Why do you want it to be simpler?
It goes against your what you were saying in the first.
It's like a bias, isn't it?
Presentation.
Why need to be simpler? It needs to be more frictionless. Why? Why do you want it to be more frictionless? So you can do it quicker. Why do you want it to be quicker?
Yeah,
it's just a bias, right?
This is what we were talking about. Like some things are designed to become more complicated. Amazon, yeah. But yeah, this thing is that Amazon was. I'm sorry, I'm nicking what you're saying. Amazon actually tests stuff regularly. It always moves stuff around. The reason being is that if you have to look for something, like a checkout button, you're more likely to click on it because you found it. You've actually won the game of finding it, and rather than going there it is and going, oh, should I do this? Actually, by moving stuff, it actually almost invigorates what you're doing, and it actually makes you think. The concept of don't make me think sometimes do make me think actually adds more value to it. Yeah.
So you're saying people are logical, so that kind of means that what they say they want and what they say they'll do aren't necessarily
That's
what they
massively
say
true. Yeah.
So I mean, any qualification on what questions to actually ask?
Yeah, unfortunately, it depends on what you're trying to find out. I mean, open-ended questions is like, you know, how does it make you feel? You know, it's those kind of things actually are much more revealing because you get someone to talk, rather than saying, do you like it? You know, how does it make you feel? You'll actually get a lot more kind of like varied kind of responses to it. It depends. I mean, it does depend on what you're trying to find out, what problem you're trying to solve. But much more open questions and much more kind of emotive questions tend to work a lot better than a yes/no, a very singular kind of question.
Okay. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah,